दिस इज द मॉडल ऑफ पेरिटोनियम. जैसे हम लोग इनर पहनते हैं, अपने बॉडी में इनर पहनते हैं, द सेम वे आवर एब्डोमिनल कैविटी वेयर इनर बट फ्रॉम इनसाइड. हम लोग इनर बाहर से पहनते हैं, बॉडी के बाहर, लेकिन एब्डोमिनल कैविटी अंदर से इनर पहना हुआ है. On all the abdominal organ as well as the pelvic cavity, abdominopelvic cavity is internally lined by a closed serous sac. This is the model of peritoneum. I have made it from open from above and downward, but it is closed serous sac, and every organs, like here, this is the liver, this is whole GIT, this is a spleen, this is kidney, all organs, even this aorta, all organs lies outside this cavity. You can see, this is empty. We can touch it from outside. They are lying outside on the posterior abdominal wall. And above, here is the diaphragm. Below, it is continuous and closed. Below, there is pelvic diaphragm and the urogenital diaphragm, and above which this peritoneal cavity is closed but open at where the uterine tube opens into the peritoneal cavity. Only egg can say that I can touch the peritoneal cavity. Other organs are outside, extraperitoneal. Okay. Now they are suspended inside like this. What I am doing? Just like this, the abdominal organ are dipped inside. All are outside. But what I am doing? They are going inside. It looks that they are going inside, but they are actually outside. Like this. Okay. So, all organs are extraperitoneal. The peritoneal, all organs are suspended into the peritoneal cavity, and this is our GIT. This one is GIT. It is a tube which starts from esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine. The part which is anterior to that is the ventral mesogastrium, and which is posterior to that is the dorsal mesogastrium. And here in the region of a small intestine, the dorsal part of the peritoneum is known as mesentery, whereas in part of the large intestine it is known as mesocolon. In the sigmoid, it is sigmoid mesocolon. All the ventral part of the peritoneum get absorbed with the time. But above, at the level of the stomach, this dilated portion is the stomach. Here you can say this is the stomach. At the level of the stomach, the ventral and the dorsal remain patent. And this is known as ventral mesogastrium and the dorsal mesogastrium respectively. Even liver, this is the liver. Ventral to the liver, it is ventral part of the ventral mesogastrium, and in between the liver and the stomach, it is the dorsal part of the ventral mesogastrium. Here is the spleen after the stomach. In between the stomach and spleen, that is the ventral part of the dorsal mesogastrium. And in between the spleen and the kidney, it is the dorsal part of dorsal mesogastrium. This anteriorly, it will develop into the falciform ligament. In between the liver and the stomach, that is lesser omentum. In between the stomach and spleen, gastrosplenic ligament. And in between the spleen and kidney, it is linorenal ligament. And here is the mesentery, here is the mesocolon. Now, how the word comes retroperitoneal. With the time, as with the development, this yellow one is the intestinal loop. Suppose this is the intestinal loop. It is outside. I can touch from outside. I have already told that every organ is extraperitoneal. But with the time, it descends down with the weight of the intestinal loop, and this part of the peritoneum get absorbed with the posterior abdominal wall. And now this is the reason why it becomes retroperitoneal. Some part of the gut tube becomes retroperitoneal as well as other abdominal organ. Now what are the retroperitoneal organ? They are mnemonic is sad pucker, the retroperitoneal organ. S for suprarenal gland, A for aorta and inferior vena cava, D for second and third part of the duodenum, P for pancreas, U for ureters, C for colon, ascending and descending colon, K for kidneys, E for esophagus, and R for rectum. All these are retroperitoneal organ. Now we will go through the arrangement of peritoneum, how they are enveloping the abdominopelvic cavity. There is one vertical arrangement from superior to inferior all throughout, and another is the horizontal arrangement at the upper abdominal level, at the mid abdominal level, and the pelvic cavity level. Okay, so now come to the vertical arrangement. In vertical arrangement, in the midline, just from the umbilicus, the two fold of peritoneum is going to the anterior aspect of the liver. This is that fold of the peritoneum. This is called falciform ligament. It has got like this. This is the anterior abdominal wall, and from anterior abdominal wall, this two sickle-shaped fold of peritoneum, that is the ventral part of the ventral mesogastrium or falciform ligament, passes from the posterior aspect of the anterior abdominal wall to the anterior aspect of the liver. It has got inferior border, anterior border, and the superior border. This is the superior border. At the inferior border, it carries ligamentum teres, periportal vein of Sapi, and the paraumbilical vein. There are two glue structures, that is the paraumbilical vein and the periportal vein of Sapi, and this ligamentum teres is nothing but the obliterated left umbilical artery. They are running on the inferior border of the falciform ligament. This is our falciform ligament, which is going to the anterior aspect of the liver. Okay. Now after going, this is the diaphragm. This one is the diaphragm. After going, it is diverging at the superior level, and from the liver, it is reflecting over the diaphragm as the coronary ligament. Okay. There is superior coronary ligament. And here also, in the right side, right coronary ligament, right superior, and here is the left coronary ligament. Coronary ligament is the nothing but the reflection from the diaphragm to the liver. Okay. Here also. Now this superior coronary ligament, it just is a reflection onto the anterior aspect of the liver. Then it is passing through the this green one, this one, and this one, this this wire, green wire, shows the course. Like first it is on the anti-abdominal wall, then it is going to the inner aspect of the diaphragm, then over the liver as the superior coronary ligament, and then it is crossing through the inferior border of the liver. This is the inferior border, and then going to the inferior surface of the liver. Inferior surface of the liver, but not the posterior surface. The visceral surface of the liver is comprises of two, that is the posterior surface as well as the inferior surface. But this superior coronary ligament passes through the inferior surface but not the posterior surface. Then it comes down and passes below and continuous over the suprarenal gland as well as the right kidney, second part of the duodenum and the right colonic flexure up to here. Okay, and what is the inferior coronary ligament? It now in the backward course it become continuous. This is the inferior course, showing the course of inferior coronary ligament. This green wire, it is going above from the suprarenal, kidney suprarenal, and then going to the posterior aspect of the liver. What we have read, that is the superior coronary ligament includes the inferior surface but not the posterior surface. But this inferior coronary ligament covers the posterior surface of the liver and then it reflects over the diaphragm. And where the superior coronary ligament and inferior coronary ligament unite at the rightmost end of the liver, they form the triangular ligament. This at the right side, this is right triangular ligament, and in the left side, there is left side of the liver, this is the left triangular ligament. Okay, so this is about the around the liver, what are the arrangement. Okay, now this blue and yellow wire. This blue and yellow wire. Again, here is the blue and the yellow wire. They are showing the L-shaped margin of the lesser omentum. Lesser omentum, I have told that it is nothing but the dorsal part of the ventral mesogastrium, which lies in between the liver and the stomach. It starts from here, from the anterior margin of the porta hepatis and the left limb of the ligamentum venosum. Okay, from here it starts as the reverse L pattern, and then one fold of the peritoneum, they are coming as the anterior layer of the lesser omentum, and one fold which starts from the posterior layer of the posterior margin of the porta hepatis and the right limb of the fissure for the ligamentum venosum. They start from there and form the posterior layer of the lesser omentum. Both layer, first there is anterior layer of the lesser omentum. It incides the anterior aspect. This is the anterosuperior surface of the stomach. The anterior layer of the lesser omentum covers the anterosuperior surface of the stomach, whereas the posterior layer of the lesser omentum covers the posterior-inferior surface of the stomach. Posterior-inferior. Okay. Lesser omentum comprises of two components, that is the hepatogastric ligament and hepatoduodenal ligament. Hepatogastric is in between that part of the lesser omentum that lies in between the liver and the stomach, and hepatoduodenal that lies in between the liver and the proximal 2 centimeter of the dorsal part of the dorsal part of the ventral mesogastrium. Okay, which is in between the liver and the first 2 centimeter of the duodenum as the hepatoduodenal ligament. Now these two layers, that is the anterior layer and the posterior layer, unite. This is the anterior layer and this is the posterior layer. They are coming downward and enveloping and now going backward. So this is the greater omentum. After the stomach, this is known as greater omentum. This is the first layer. I have written over here first. This is the second layer. Both of this layer unite and then folded upon itself. That is, the first layer form the fourth layer and the second layer form the third layer. It is written over here in blue color, third and fourth. Second forming the third layer of the greater omentum, whereas the first form the fourth layer of the greater omentum by folding upon itself. Now the third layer continuous above. They are continuous above and going over the anterior aspect of the pancreas, and then they are going above and forming the gastrophrenic ligament. This is the GPL, gastrophrenic ligament. The third layer, after enveloping the pancreas, this is pancreas, here is the pancreas, this one. After enveloping the pancreas, they are going upward as the gastrophrenic ligament. And the fourth layer, they are just returning back from the pancreas and enveloping the transverse colon. This is the, here it is written transverse colon. It is enveloping the transverse colon, and now anterior aspect, then posterior aspect of the transverse colon, and then they are encircling the small intestine, that is the duodenum, jejunum and ileum, and forms the mesentery. First form the mesentery is like this. First form the right layer, then left layer of the mesentery. Okay, and then coming downward, now it is enveloping the sigmoid colon and forming the anterior layer of the sigmoid colon, then forming the posterior layer of the sigmoid colon, then it is coming downward after enveloping sigmoid colon. Then this is the, here is the, this in brown color, here is the rectum below the, this one is the rectum. Now it enveloping the upper 2/3 of the rectum. Now it just reflect over the uterus on the posterior fornix of the Here you can see this brown paper. This from the rectum, it is reflecting over the, this is the uterus. It is reflecting over the uterus, over the posterior fornix of the vagina, then going upward and then running over the anterior aspect of the uterus up to the junction of the body and the cervix, and then it jump over the superior surface of the urinary bladder. This in green color, this is the urinary bladder. And now this green one, this green wire, it starts from the superior surface of the urinary bladder as the median umbilical ligament, which is known as urachus, and going up to the umbilicus. So this is the vertical disposition of the peritoneum, how it runs in the vertical fashion. Now we will discuss its horizontal fashion. Horizontally, at upper level, we have read that the superior, the inferior coronary ligament, they are forming the triangular ligament here. And now, this ligament, they are inside the anterior abdominal wall and going posteriorly. Here you can see this green wire. This is the enveloping the kidney, the right kidney. Okay, and going up to the inferior vena cava. This thing is the, here is the inferior vena cava. This shows the vertical disposition, horizontal disposition at the upper abdomen level from the triangular ligament and the superior coronary ligament. It just envelop the posterior aspect of the anterior abdominal wall and then going to the anterior aspect of the posterior abdominal wall and cover the right kidney and then going up to the inferior vena cava. Here at this level. Okay, and now this is in the left side, from the left lobe of the liver. It just cover the left lobe of liver, and from the left portion of the falciform ligament, it is reflecting over the posterior aspect of the anti-abdominal wall and then going back and coming to the anterior aspect of the posterior abdominal wall, and it just runs over the anterior aspect of the left kidney. This green wire is showing the course of the peritoneum. Now, after enveloping the kidney, they are forming the posterior layer. After coming here, posterior layer of the linorenal ligament. And now, going up to the hilum, they are enveloping the spleen. This is the spleen. And the portion of the peritoneum in between the kidney and the spleen is the linorenal ligament. So forming the posterior layer of the linorenal ligament, and after encircling the spleen, it is reflecting over the stomach as the anterior layer of the gastrosplenic ligament. Now it is running over the anterior aspect of the stomach, and then it's forming the right free margin of the lesa omentum, where from the bad structure runs. This blue is the portal vein, red one is the hepatic artery, black one is the bile duct. After encircling, it is going back and enveloping the posterior aspect of the stomach, and then forming the, here you can see the green one, this one is the forming the posterior layer of the gastrosplenic ligament, and then here is forming the anterior layer of the linorenal ligament. And now it is going backward and then going up to the inferior vena cava. So this is the horizontal disposition at the upper abdominal level. In the mid-abdominal